that stretches from the Gulf of Mexico to New York. The company did not say what was demanded or by whom. Tennessee Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn is calling for improvements to the nation's energy infrastructure.
We have had a Department of Energy cybersecurity project at Oak Ridge Labs, and I've been pushing to bring all of our national labs into a consortium to work on this, because securing our nation's critical infrastructure is going to be an imperative because of these bad actors that are out there.
Energy analysts say the impact on fuel supplies and prices depends on how long the pipeline is shut down. Deportations have reached an all-time low as a record surge of new migrants and asylum seekers continues at the southern border. Fox's Bill Malusian in Del Rio, Texas.
Border Patrol reporting that just here in Del Rio in the past week alone, they've been averaging 740 apprehensions every single day. The local sheriff here telling us he's never seen it worse and that human smugglers have been taking advantage. A semi-truck that got pulled over by local police after folks out there reported seeing people in the back of the truck. Police pull it over and there were dozens of migrants in the back of that semi.
Customs officials report 162,000 migrants were detained in April, but about 30,000 got away. 3 people were dead, including a suspect, and 2 others are injured after a shooting and fire in Maryland. Baltimore County Police say officers found an armed man outside a burning home in Woodlawn and shot him. The fire damaged 2 other homes. America is listening to Fox News.
Finally, get curcumin and CoQ10 together. Stop Aging Now brings you CoQ10 Ultra to fight inflammation and energize your body. Get a 30-day supply for 40% off plus free shipping with promo code FOX. Power and protect your cells for a strong heart, sharp brain, pain-free joints, and more. Nancy from West Virginia raves, CoQ10 Ultra helps me stay mentally and physically fit. Only from Stop Aging Now. Get 40% off plus free shipping right now. Go to stopagingnow.com and use code FOX.
The Equality Act is stalling out in the U.S. Senate. Democrats had hoped they could pass the legislation creating new protections for LGBTQ Americans this year, but Republicans warn it would open the floodgates for transgender athletes to play on female sports teams. A large piece of a Chinese rocket from a launch last month is expected to fall back to Earth this weekend. Fox's Jill Nato reports.
A 23-ton rocket core careening out of orbit and headed for Earth. We don't know where it's going to hit, but researchers think they have an idea as to when. The Center for Orbital Reentry and Debris Study says it'll be around 04:19 Greenwich Mean Time. That's 12:19 a.m. Eastern Time Sunday, give or take 8 hours. Because the Earth is mostly covered with water, chances are it'll hit an ocean. And some scientists believe as much as 40% of it will get burned up in the atmosphere. But if it hits land, whatever's left of it is bound to leave a mark. Jill Nato, Fox News.
At least 30 people were dead after a bomb exploded near a girls' school west of Kabul. The Taliban condemned the attack, and there's been no claim of responsibility. A well-known billionaire hosting tonight's Saturday Night Live show on NBC.
Tesla and SpaceX billionaire Elon Musk will take the stage this evening to try his hand at hosting the iconic show, which also features Miley Cyrus as musical guest. The announcement of Musk as Saturday Night Live host has drawn criticism on social media.
Excuse me, is this where I get a license to start a new business?
I wouldn't be hasty. You have to get a license to go out of business, too, you know.
Oh, well, look, I've invented this little anti-gravity machine, see?
Oh, is that why you're walking 2 inches above the floor?
Oh, yes, it's very comfortable. It saves on shoe leather.
Yeah, well, you have to fill out these forms and report to the Human Services Department of Manpower Orientation and register with the Fair Employment Practice Commission, the Wage and Hour Division of the Employment Standards Administration, the State Sales and Income Tax Division, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Social Security Administration of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and, of course, OSHA.
OSHA? I thought that was a little town in Wisconsin.
You'll find out. Say, floating around like that could be dangerous. Have you checked with the Consumer Product Safety Commission?
Well, not yet.
Come to think of it, you actually are flying, aren't you? Look, you need to go over to the Federal Aviation Administration and the Transportation...
It's very hard to get anything done these days if you're in business, but free enterprise built this country. Think what could happen if we don't keep it free. A public service of this station and the Center for the Defense of Free Enterprise, Bellevue, Washington.
We just can't have people floating about unregulated, you know.
The only nation where this regularly happens concludes that there's no way to prevent this. A college rape victim is pretty thrilled about recounting her assault to a faculty committee, and the nation's depressed individuals march on the Atlantic Ocean. This is the Onion Week in Review. Secretary of Veterans Affairs Eric Shinseki announced plans this week to improve healthcare for American veterans with a new $500 million state-of-the-art waiting room. The 150,000 square foot complex will reportedly feature a wide selection of magazines, 2 water coolers, and receptionists who will immediately give veterans vague answers about how long they can expect to sit there before receiving inadequate healthcare. And in this week's commentary, a local man finds owning a cat is a great way to meet women who magically appear in your living room. In other news, a new study finds employee morale drastically improves after watching a coworker throw a fit. A wise oracle proclaims to all at a barbecue that he felt a raindrop, and an elderly man is hailed as alert.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
Yes, it is Free Talk Live, the Sunday night edition. Also, it's Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
There's a specific song from the Kick-Ass Parody Project that you can find over at lordkickass.com. That's lordkickass.com, called Your Mother. And it's that Journey song, you know. Oh, he's loving, he's touching, he's squeezing your mother. Right?
Nice.
It's hilarious. It's written from the perspective of like somebody who discovers that their parents, who they consider old, are still sexually active.
It is a disturbing thing to find out.
So if you've ever walked in on your parents, or maybe your parents divorced and one of your parents gets a new significant other and you walked in on them or something like that, this song is for you. So anyway, that's my shameless plug for Mother's Day. I try to push that song out on social media.
Your parents continuing to be sexually active is good for you as long as you don't see it.
Anyway, this is Free Talk Live. We are the live call-in radio talk program where you can take control of the airwaves, talk about anything that's on your mind. The telephone number you need to call in is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it is myself, the Lord Reverend Dr. Captain Kickass. Joining me,
Beakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
We've got a whole bunch of stuff prepped for you, so we've got plenty to talk about. We've covered a bit about this particular person before. His name is Artur Pawlowski, and he is a Canadian preacher who has been arrested and charged after defying public health orders. Now, what's special about that? Well, what's special is what he was arrested for. He was arrested for preaching to a congregation. That's right, preaching to a congregation. Now, Canada likes to think that they're a lot like the U.S. when it comes to their freedom of religion. But apparently they're ahead of the police state game when it comes to, arresting people for exercising their religious freedom.
Well, that's not necessarily true. There was a couple of incidences of that happening during lockdown here.
That's true. There were. But we didn't really see anybody get arrested. It was more like they showed up and broke up the thing, and then it made some press. But I don't think we saw anybody arrested and charged for defying the COVID rules here in the U.S. We did see, however, that happen in Canada, and we've covered that here on Free Talk Live.
And I would definitely argue that this is the establishment of a state religion. I mean, essentially what they are arresting you for is preaching a competing religion. Because the people that are doing this, essentially you get in trouble for arguing with their priesthood. In our country, it's the CDC, and I'm sure that in Canada, it's a rough equivalent of that.
Yeah, this is from the CalgaryHerald.com. Calgary police have arrested street preacher Artur Pawlowski after he failed to abide by public health orders again during a Saturday church service during which dozens were congregating without masks with no regard for physical distancing. I was just at a dinner where that very thing occurred. No masks. Pretty much nobody was physical distancing. In fact, when I showed up at the restaurant, I parked, And I saw some people like kind of walking towards my car as I was getting out. And I was just kind of lollygagging a bit, waiting for him to pass. So I didn't, have to do one of those dance things where people get in each other's way. And so there's a restaurant next to the place where I dined, or where we dined, where they had patio seating. And somebody at the patio seating recognized these two ladies who were walking down the street. And it was, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And they ran up to each other, no masks, and hugged each other. And it occurred to me that I haven't seen that since this whole COVID madness thing began. I haven't seen people recognize each other, get up and run over to each other, and literally just embrace and hug each other. It was a really nice moment for me. I lollygagged a little longer for them to enjoy their moment, and also for me to enjoy them having the moment, because this is something.
To witness those things.
This is something I have not seen since COVID madness kicked in and your government started treating people as if they were sick until proven healthy.
Well, there's an old saying, you don't know what you got till it's gone, and I missed humans being human.
It was a nice moment. At any rate, Calgary police have arrested Mr. Pawlowski. His brother, David Pawlowski, was also taken into custody. Both men have been charged with organizing an illegal in-person gathering, in addition to requesting, inciting, or inviting others to join them, said the Calgary Police Service in a statement. It is important to understand that law enforcement recognizes people's desire to participate in faith-based gatherings, as well as the right to protest. However, as we find ourselves in the midst of a global pandemic, we must all comply with the public health orders in order to ensure everyone's safety and well-being, the police service said.
Well, you see, there's this invisible enemy that infests your body unless you carry certain talismans and perform certain rituals. And these people were failing to perform the rituals and carry the talismans.
Just for our listeners, can you elaborate on the talismans?
Well, the talisman is the mask, or as we call it, face diaper, also known as a muzzle. Now, if you wear that correctly, then the invisible enemy will fail to inhabit your body and jump to other hosts while it does so. Also, it is very important that you never come within touching distance of another human being. So if they could reach out their arm and you could reach out your arm and it be possible to touch, you are too close.
With your analogy about religions, this does kind of sound like the same kind of things that priests would treat exorcisms with, right? Like, don't get too close, otherwise the spirit will jump from their body into your body.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Which is a really weird limitation on spirits.
Right? Like, they can move.
Although I've never heard that from any religious person. So.
Well, there are a lot of strange limitations on spirits. Once upon a time in different religions, they would also say that they would only jump from body to body after dark.
Weird.
And similarly, today, there are all of these, what do you call them, curfews.
Oh, yeah.
And, bars being required to close at 10 p.m. because that's when the risk of transmission of this invisible invader will increase.
And
but businesses aren't actually closing because they're scared of COVID. Cops actually exist, and their bullets will actually kill you.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why businesses are closing.
Yeah, right. They're closing because they're threatened with, the brutality of police, should they not comply.
Well, in those eras, there were zealots. Zealots had real clubs that would really hit you. And some of them didn't actually believe what they were professing, but were paid to enforce these arbitrary religious rules.
Well, then the people who were complying in the face of that weren't being psycho-religious people either. They were like, this guy's going to beat me to death unless I go home, so I'm going to go home. That's a completely, whether or not you should do something else, that's a completely rational position.
Oh, yeah. Well, the same situation existed in the USSR. I mean, the vast majority of people didn't actually believe in the Great Revolution and the New Utopia. However, they certainly knew what would happen to them if they ever dared breathe a word above a whisper that was the case.
But that's not a religion. That's knowing that you're mortal, which is almost kind of the opposite of a religion.
Well, so for one side it is, for the other it isn't.
Well, the actions aren't religious. The organizations, however, are. The state is definitely a religion. And in this context, anyway.
Well, and it demands a very specific form of worship. And you don't have to actually believe in the state religion in order to perform the kind of worship that they find acceptable. But if you fail to perform the kind of worship that they deem acceptable, well, then you will face all manner of censure. And if you start performing some competing religious rituals, well, that's what happened to the guy in Calgary.
The Alberta Health Services obtained a Court of Queen's bench order on Thursday, which imposed additional restrictions on organizations of protests or demonstrations, requiring compliance with COVID-19 safety measures such as masking and attendance limits, all being imposed upon a preacher and his congregation. 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live is on the way.
The Terran Federation and the Terran League have been killing each other for decades. Sheltered, wealthy, and light years from the threat, the members of the 500 have no interest in changing that. When Rear Admiral Terrence Murphy is given governorship of a backwater system, a risk-free path to wealth and power is his for the taking. But Murphy is a man of honor, duty, and responsibility. He intends to stop the killing, whatever the cost. Governor, by David Weber and Richard Fox, from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it. And once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Yeah. Yeah, and what was the portmanteau I made up earlier because of your shirt? It was, right, because we were saying I'm saying, it's
camo,
a striped shirt. No, it's a plaidmouflage.
Yeah, that was it.
It's camouflaged plaid.
Mm-hmm.
Plaidmouflage. That's the portmanteau of the day here on the Sunday Mother's Day edition of Free Talk Live.
Yeah, our returning listeners may remember you mentioning my striped shirt when, in fact, I've just discovered that it is not, in fact, a striped shirt.
Yeah, you have to look really closely at it, but yeah, I mean, it looks striped, definitely, but you get up on it and it's like, well, okay, maybe it is kind of plaid.
It's kind of like quantum physics, it looks this way, and then when you, get down to detail, just like a video game, it sort of breaks apart when you get too close.
It's Schrodinger's striped shirt.
It is.
When you look real close, the stripes disappear, it becomes plaid.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
We've gone to plaid.
This is Free Talk Live. The telephone number, if you'd like to join the conversation, is 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Beakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
We've been talking about this article from the Calgary Herald where the street preacher Artur Pawlowski has been arrested and charged for, of all things, holding a religious congregation service in Canada. And we can talk more about that. But first, we are called Free Talk Live, and we do expect people to call. So let's go to Jet, who's in Spokane, or Spokane if you're from the area. Jet, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, hi. I was going to call in last night to talk about equality, but didn't get to it, so I'll talk about it tonight. I'm one of those people who truly believe that all men are created equal, and we all have equal rights. Now, of course, we're not equal in stature and all that other crap, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that we have equal rights. So if all of us around the world are equal in our rights, so to speak, then how do we get certain people to somehow stand in such a position that they can have rules over us or guiding over us? When someone
Insanity.
even refers to the need of government, I ask them two questions. Who gets to make the rules? Do I get to make the rules,
right,
or who? And number two, what gives one man, and typically strangers, the right to make rules over another?
And where do they get that power from to make rules over other men?
Yeah, so that's why I call in on occasion and encourage all of you to as best you can just avoid any of these terms that refer to this thing we call government, because local, state, and federal government does not exist. It's just a bunch of people, just a bunch of other humans who have no more rights to do anything than you or I. And if we pass that message along, this is what's going to wake up enough people that'll change the world and hopefully dilute this whole thing.
So, Jet, I wanted to ask your opinion on, I really appreciate you pointing out that we need to, I think it was Confucius that said the beginning of wisdom is to call things by their proper name.
Yes.
And you are very insistent that we refer to these things as what they are. So I wondered if you could share some insight on the modern terminology, the social distancing, the new normal, that manner of thing. Have you put some thought into what terms we should actually use to call those by their proper name?
Well, when the term new normal came out, I mean, the very first time I heard it, I started passing that around on Facebook, saying, watch out for this term. Government, this thing we call government, is all psychology. It's about the concept that of persuasion, either by threat of violence or some kind of fear or something that'll cause people to modify their behavior and follow other people that we would ourselves consider, near idiots. But in specific, the new normal, I mean, there's no such thing as normal, first of all, because we're ever changing. So I'm not sure what you're saying.
I would push back on that. I mean, there's no precise normal, and certainly no individual is 100% normal in every category. In fact, they would be abnormal by being 100% normal in every category. But there is certainly a range of accepted and expected behaviors.
Well, we might call those the norm,
right?
Or something we can call
the
norm,
median or something like that.
And say again?
The median, perhaps.
Yeah, I just steer clear of all these things because I recognize each individual as being unique, and no matter what kind of box.
Well, and I just came across a term that I have become instantly fond of: true normal. So there's the new normal and the true normal.
Ooh, that's
okay.
That's scary.
Yeah, I don't. So
I just real quick, Jet. I just wanted to say, you at the top of your call, you said that folks should have equal rights, humans at least. That you recognize,
well, we all do,
right? You recognize that all humans are not equal in and of themselves, and that, well, I mean, even one man isn't equal to himself on any given day, right? Like tomorrow, I could be stronger than I am today, or weaker, or whatever, right? Or I might be able to do something today that I can't do tomorrow. So we can't even be equal to ourselves, much less equal to each other. But you mentioned, what can we do to get people to, sort of recognize that human rights should be equal to all humans? Well, somebody said that, in the United States, we have the Bill of Rights, and they said the way to accomplish what you had mentioned was to have a corresponding Bill of Responsibilities. And I think that that is key to getting everyone sort of on the same page when it comes to rights, is just making sure that everybody understands personal responsibility and takes personal responsibility for the things that the organization we call government likes to do for you.
And I think that's no, go ahead.
I guess my focus tonight was the idea that if we promote the fact that we're all equal, as I myself, as a dedicated follower of Christ, understand that we're all fallen, none are righteous. God sees each one of us as equal in that way. So, the Creator. So, if you can not refer to any other group as being special, in other words, whatever word you use that creates them some kind of special right or privilege, we eliminate those words and we continue to use words like, well, I came up with another one. We talk about the arrest and kidnapping. It's more really of an abduction from certain people and individuals.
Yep.
So the best we can do to dilute that down to the lowest possible denominator, then you can spread the word and more people will wake up. That's my goal, is to wake people up, both in society, what we call society, and in the church.
That's a great goal, Jet. We appreciate the call tonight. Any other thoughts?
Well, I love the idea of pointing out that it is your responsibility rather than this amorphous government to ensure the rights of others.
Yes.
So a Bill of Responsibilities is brilliant.
And it can be personal, too. 603-283-6160. How are you responsible? Give us a call.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Yes, welcome back to the program. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We appreciate you listening. The show is called Free Talk Live. We're a live call-in radio talk program where you can call in and talk about anything that's on your mind. The telephone number in studio is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
We've been talking about this article from the CalgaryHerald.com where a preacher has been arrested for conducting a religious congregation service. Alberta Health Services obtained a Court of Queen's bench order on Thursday, which imposed additional restrictions on organizers of protests or demonstrations requiring compliance with COVID-19 safety measures such as masking and attendance limits, which apparently extends to religious services. Law enforcement agencies can act immediately under this injunction without the necessity of Alberta Health Services attendance, Alberta RCMP said in a statement issued Friday in response to the injunction. There are a variety of ways to enforce this order, including the ability to issue tickets, fines, and criminal charges to individuals who are breaking public health orders by organizing and or attending these events. This can include arrest and removal of any person who has notice of this order and chooses to act in violation of it. The Calgary police said in a statement on Friday evening, the court order was a significant development. And we can talk more about the events happening happening in Calgary to this particular preacher and his congregation. But first, let's go to Robert, who's calling in from South Carolina. Robert, you're on Free Talk Live.
Thank you very much, sir. I just wanted to say that actually just before your program started on the news report at 7 o'clock, they said that Pope Francis had admonished the congregation for too much individualism. Actually, in a way, it was the Catholic Church who started out with the individualism, because during the time of Rabbi Yeshua, also known as Jesus Christ, he was basically a kind of hippie, and if a person would come up to him and be interested in him, he would say, "Okay, give me your fortune and join our group and come with me." And the fact of the matter is that he actually was married as well. All his people at the beginning were married, and they had wives and children. He had a child himself with a wife by the name of Mary Magdalene. The child, actually, he was never on the cross and went with her on a boat to France and raised the child there. He had a deal worked out with the governor at the province because he had saved the governor's son's life.
How is this relevant to individualism?
Yeah, it's relevant to individualism because of the fact that the Catholic Church basically is not a family structure. They don't believe in they don't get married. They reject marriage. And the reason for that was that they were afraid that the Catholic members of the cloth of the Catholic Church would give benefits, including money, to their wives and children instead of keeping it within the church. So they became celibate. But that was actually much later, and therefore they were more individualistic because they were not familial oriented as they had been originally in the church. And then later on, even in the Catholic schools in Berlin, Germany, and in upstate New York, in the two schools with which I was familiar, they told the girls in Berlin, watch it, the boys are only interested in sex. And they told us in upstate New York, watch it, if you ever get one of them pregnant, don't forget, you're going to be on the hook for the bill.
Okay, so bring it all forward now. How is that relevant to today?
Well, I'm not really sure 100%, but on the other hand, the Pope did say that we're moving toward individualism. So I presume that's what he meant. In other words, basically keep to yourself. Don't get involved with women too much. And if you do, it's a big thing. Like my brother, when he got married, they made him go through the hoops, many hoops, in order to get married. He had to go to counseling. She had to go to counseling. They both had to go to counseling.
Okay. Well, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Any thoughts on any of that?
I don't know that premarital counseling is a bad idea. I mean, especially if you have something that remotely resembles like an intact community. Maybe it's good to be like, okay, y'all, like, what are your plans, really?
Yeah, I think of what you're thinking of, but I wouldn't call it premarital counseling. I would call it like the marriage course, right? Because a lot of times young couples, before they get married, they don't know what they're getting into. And so they need to know the ramifications of the legalities of signing the document with the state. They need to know, points and tips for, how to make your relationship go. They need financial advice going into any kind of a union like that.
I've heard too many people say, oh, well, we've been married for 7 years and we never discussed if we would have kids or not. We've been married for 12 years and we never discussed how we would, pursue their education. We've been married for however long, and we never discussed this really obvious thing.
Right.
So I wish people would just do that on their own, but apparently they're not going to. So to have somebody who's kind of cool-headed, because you're not when you're getting married, by the way, unless you're being trafficked, to sit down and be like, okay, what are your plans, and are they compatible? And if not, or if you don't have plans, get some that are compatible if you're going to go through with this.
Yeah, a lot of this is just another of many extensions of, I expect a thing, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. Yeah. So you go into this, I have this long, long list of expectations that were basically put into me by my culture, and this was my interpretation of this cultural activity. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but I am going to be very, very upset when you don't live up to every single one of them as much as I would like you to.
And I don't think it's as cognizant as all that. I think that they don't think about it, which is the problem.
Yeah, that's exactly why you end up in that situation, is because you have these expectations that you haven't thought about and certainly haven't discussed, but you just assume that, well, it's the word marriage, and the word marriage means exactly the same thing to everyone that it means to me.
I don't see all of the chats that come through on the various different platforms, but because one of our other hosts, Aria, has set up this neat thing, I can see some of them come through. One of them I just want to mention says, I feel like every day I'm in the twilight zone, getting arrested for practicing religion, and the majority of the population sees nothing wrong. In fact, they're cheering on the Gestapo. At this point, we deserve the apocalypse, says one of our chatters.
Well, I don't.
You don't deserve the apocalypse?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
We could just have New Hampshire. You just make everybody take an IQ test. If you're 110 or above, build a wall, have
okay,
aerial
so do you
surveillance.
think that Jerome Powell is below a 110?
No, but he won't be able to function if he doesn't have his army of drones
I don't-
to follow him around and defend fiat currency.
I don't think intelligence is nearly as important in running a functional libertarian society as you seem to think it is. I think that intelligence will get it done faster, but it has...
have you ever put a bunch of like really intelligent people in a room and asked them to cooperate?
Depends.
It's like
But it's kind of like Congress. Nothing's supposed to get done.
okay, but you were just advocating for giving everybody an IQ test, and then like if they don't make the cut, kick them out of New Hampshire, and only let those people who with an IQ above whatever into New Hampshire. That to me is akin to taking virtuosos at their instruments and putting them together and trying to make them form a band. Can't be done, because everybody wants to be the dominant personality in the band, and so the band will put out crap music. There's a few exceptions to this, of course, but I've seen it done again and again, where like, people are in search of the best musicians, the best drummer, the best bass player, the best guitar player, the best singer, and they try and put this together from all of the people in their area. They try and seek these people out, and if somebody's better than the guy they have now, they'll fire the guy and hire the other guy, and it always turns into crap because everybody's too busy being the dominant personality. You need people of lesser, in your case, intelligence, of lesser, dominance, if you will, or alphaness to help with your cooperation. Otherwise, if everybody's of X intelligence or higher, cooperation's going to take a dive. Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160.
Do you know the difference between erudite and pedantic? If you do, you're probably pedantic. But seriously, a surprising number of erudite people mispronounce erudite, which has 3 syllables, not 4. Say erudite, not erudite. Because you are judged by how you speak, you want to avoid common misstatements, especially if you're a job seeker. For instance, do you know the difference between imply and infer? Only a speaker can imply. Only a listener can infer. And when you say you'll be out of pocket, do you mean out of touch? Out of pocket means you're on your own dime, not yet reimbursed. And if anyone ever asks, why do you always answer a question with a question? You should reply, do I do that? Just kidding. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealestate.com
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
For me, it's fighting negativity, and the negativity is my thoughts in my head that are negative. And I had to learn to recognize when my thoughts were being negative, because most of my life, most of my thoughts were negative. Mm-hmm. So I had to become aware of when they were happening. And when I become aware of these negative thoughts pervading my thinking, I immediately fight them with positive thoughts. And most of the positive thoughts that I feed myself are positive affirmations about who I am, where I'm going, where I've come from.
Whenever I find myself thinking negatively, I don't consider it fighting the negative thoughts. I just consider it changing my train of thought. I just kind of change tracks to a positive thought and just focus on that.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Six 603-283-6160. Those are the magic digits that you need if you would like to call in and talk about whatever's on your mind. The show is called Free Talk Live for that very reason. And in the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain,
Pigless Mountaineer,
and Melanie.
We were in mid-discussion before we heard some things about our advertisers. I made some comments about how, having, you had mentioned, Melanie, that, give everybody an IQ test, and everybody who, passes above X gets in, and everybody who's below that gets kicked out.
Well, so not necessarily kicking out. Okay, so if New Hampshire is producing sub-functional people and borderline functional people, then New Hampshire deserves those consequences. If they're not, and say Boston often buses their rejects to Manchester,
which they do.
Boston created that. They can go back to Boston because they're not. I mean, they're just like trespassing and stealing stuff here.
Can you really blame a collective as broad as Boston, right, for this production of people who are sort of substandard in your opinion?
Well, so Boston isn't really a precise definition, but
right.
it's kind of the most recognizable term that we have. There are such things as societies, and if your society does nothing but produce a bunch of messed up people, then kind of throwing them away to somewhere else, A, isn't great for the people that you're doing that to, and B, is not fair to the society that you're dumping them on.
Okay, so let's say the United States produces a bunch of messed up people, which I feel like it does.
I would say that our educational system is specifically geared toward doing so.
1 in 5 high school graduates are functionally illiterate. So how do you deal with that?
Not by dumping them in Europe or whatever. Like, how is that France's problem or whatever?
Right.
Well, and I'd like to point out that there is a heck of a lot more to being a functional human being than having a high IQ.
Yes, you also need good time preference and a lack of serious physical brain injury.
Can you describe for our listeners what time preference is? We talk about that frequently here. I just
Okay,
want to make
so
sure.
if you have a high time preference, then you want what you want and you want it now, and consequences long term be damned, and you'll take. I'm trying to define this without.
So
putting judgment in this.
I've got a great example, the marshmallow test that they will do for children, where they say, okay, there's a marshmallow here. Now, if you can sit here for 1 minute or 2 minutes or whatever it is, and not eat the marshmallow, then I will give you 2 marshmallows. And the ones who choose to sit there, licking their lips and trying to distract themselves from that delicious marshmallow there, and do actually wait it out for that second marshmallow, that is a low time preference.
Okay, so instant gratification versus delayed gratification.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
The ability to like work now, and people call it sacrifices. And it's like, well, if you're doing something to benefit yourself, that's not a sacrifice. It's
no, that is absolutely a sacrifice.
No, it's not.
No, that is absolutely that is a sacrifice.
A hit in the present in order to have a better future
is
would be
literally what
low
sacrifice
time,
is.
Low time preference.
You are sacrificing time.
And time preference is actually a better predictor of outcomes than IQ is, but it's a little bit harder. You can measure it fairly accurately in toddlers, although that could improve later in their life. Like, you could be a 3-year-old with a high time preference, and then when you're 20, have an appropriate time preference. But I'm not aware of a good way to test that in adults.
And what I wanted to point out is that, okay, so you can have someone who is brilliant and even a low time preference person, but has absolutely no sense of morality.
Yes, there are evil, low time preference, high IQ people. But there's always these sayings that, especially in our community, we throw out, like, well, without all the people following his orders blindly, Hitler's just a psychopath on a stage. And without all the police willing to enforce the law, then Congress is just psychos writing down wishes. And
right.
So,
well, okay.
Yes, those
Karl
evil
Marx.
people would exist.
Karl Marx was a high intelligence, low time preference individual.
And if he didn't have his army of mindless drones following him well beyond his death, he would have accomplished exactly nothing. Without the army of mindless drones, evil people will exist.
Well, and
they're not accomplishing anything.
That's you'll be free to deal with them on an individual basis instead of dealing with them having an army of enforcers. It's always the enforcers that are the problems with these.
Sure, but I'm not discussing this as a matter of threat. I'm discussing this as a matter of effective members of a libertarian society.
Yes,
so Karl Marx is not going to be an effective member of a libertarian society.
He either will, or he'll die, or he'll leave. And I don't particularly have a preference. I do, but I don't have much of a preference of those 3 options. Jerome Powell is not a stupid person.
Oh.
He's evil, but he would not be able to run a central bank in a libertarian society unless there was a lot of stupid people to go along with it.
Okay, so you've just argued against your original premise. Your idea was that we should only let in the people of 110 IQ or better. Okay, well, how about all of those people of under 110 IQ? They either will get along, or they will leave, or they will die. So there's no need to filter that.
If you are not allowed or not able, if you are not able to have an army of mindless drones, that is what will happen. If you are able to have an army of mindless drones, that is not what will happen.
You can have highly intelligent people that will mindlessly follow the dictates of someone. That's a personality thing.
That's not going to happen on a widespread level with an intelligent population.
Oh, it absolutely will.
Well, then I guess we're screwed and we should just...
No, you should select for different characteristics. So you can have someone who's extremely high IQ, but also high in agreeableness. And those high in agreeableness people are significantly more likely to go along with whatever everyone's doing.
I don't trust personality tests as much as I trust IQ tests. They're not as objective.
I don't think testing people to find out if they're right for a particular society is the way to get to the society that you desire. I think that probably the test or the indicators for whether or not somebody, if we're talking about a libertarian society specifically, would be something like, can you articulate the non-aggression principle, and can you demonstrate a time when you followed it? I think that's a far better question than what's your IQ or what are your results on this personality test.
If it was Jerome Powell coming in from whatever, I don't know what branch he lives at, and I kind of have deliberately avoided that information, but coming from wherever he is, if we know it's Jerome Powell and he's like, hello, I like to live in Ancapistan, GTFO, no you don't.
Well, and that's the thing. Your values matter significantly more than your capabilities. If you value non-aggression.
They both matter, because you can have good values and be completely non-functional.
It is possible.
You can be functionally evil because you're just allowing yourself to be used as this tool, and maybe you're a good person in your head, but that doesn't matter because how many people do you think are actually malicious about the lockdown versus how many of them are just like, well, the guy on TV said it? And which one is causing more harm? Would you rather face off Joe Biden or the entire United States military?
You lost me.
Without the U.S. military, and maybe without the Secret Service, Joe Biden is just some dude with dementia.
Yeah, well, and the police, too, are part of that, right? So any armed faction of the government, any enforcers are what she's referring to.
And really, even if you had the enforcers, if you didn't have a population who would go along with it,
right,
and you were able to defend yourself when they came, because you wouldn't have social, not even social pressure, but social force to the contrary, that might not even matter.
I would infinitely prefer to live in a neighborhood with 90 IQ people with strong values, good principles, non-violent, non-aggressive principles, non-aggressive ways of living, than in a 150 average IQ where the principles and values are less reliable. In fact, that seems extremely dangerous.
But that's not the option A and B until some one person comes along and is able to manipulate all of these 90 IQ people, because that's what happens to 90 IQ people.
Well, again, the premise is that their principles are solid, that their values are solid and well-directed.
Process it. If their IQ is so low,
weirdly enough,
process that.
That
it
actually
doesn't matter. They're not going to be able to apply it.
That actually makes them less susceptible to manipulation, because they can't reprogram themselves in order to accept this.
603-283-6160. Coming up on Free Talk Live, does spanking affect children's brain development in the same way as child abuse? This is Free Talk Live.
A newly recruited search and rescue officer, Marshall Hunter was resigned to a life of rescuing wayward spacefarers and derelict satellites. But when a billionaire couple goes missing, his own ship is disabled during the rescue. With communication satellites suddenly failing and lunar mineral shipments disappearing in transit, the crew suspects it's more than a coincidence, and Hunter must choose between salvation and sacrifice to save his crewmates and their civilian charges. Frontier by Patrick Childs and BingBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
A major energy pipeline shut down by a cyber attack. I'm Joe Chiro, Fox News. Colonial Pipeline says it was targeted by a ransomware attack that forced it to temporarily shut down a pipeline that stretches from the Gulf of Mexico to New York. The company did not say what was demanded or by whom. Tennessee Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn is calling for improvements to the nation's energy infrastructure.
We have had a Department of Energy cybersecurity project at Oak Ridge Labs, and I've been pushing to bring all of our national labs into a consortium to work on this, because securing our nation's critical infrastructure is going to be an imperative because of these bad actors that are out there.
Energy analysts say the impact on fuel supplies and prices depends on how long the pipeline is shut down. Deportations have reached an all-time low as a record surge of new migrants and asylum seekers continues at the southern border. Fox's Bill Malusian in Del Rio, Texas.
Border Patrol reporting that just here in Del Rio in the past week alone, they've been averaging 740 apprehensions every single day. The local sheriff here telling us he's never seen it worse and that human smugglers have been taking advantage. A semi-truck that got pulled over by local police after folks out there reported seeing people in the back of the truck. Police pull it over and there were dozens of migrants in the back of that semi.
Customs officials report 162,000 migrants were detained in April, but about 30,000 got away. 3 people were dead, including a suspect, and 2 others are injured after a shooting and fire in Maryland. Baltimore County Police say officers found an armed man outside a burning home in Woodlawn and shot him. The fire damaged 2 other homes. America is listening to Fox News.
Finally, get curcumin and CoQ10 together. Stop Aging Now brings you CoQ10 Ultra to fight inflammation and energize your body. Get a 30-day supply for 40% off plus free shipping with promo code FOX. Power and protect your cells for a strong heart, sharp brain, pain-free joints, and more. Nancy from West Virginia raves, CoQ10 Ultra helps me stay mentally and physically fit. Only from Stop Aging Now. Get 40% off plus free shipping right now. Go to stopagingnow.com and use code FOX.
The Equality Act is stalling out in the U.S. Senate. Democrats had hoped they could pass the legislation creating new protections for LGBTQ Americans this year, but Republicans warn it would open the floodgates for transgender athletes to play on female sports teams. A large piece of a Chinese rocket from a launch last month is expected to fall back to Earth this weekend. Fox's Jill Nato reports.
A 23-ton rocket core careening out of orbit and headed for Earth. We don't know where it's going to hit, but researchers think they have an idea as to when. The Center for Orbital Reentry and Debris Study says it'll be around 04:19 Greenwich Mean Time. That's 12:19 a.m. Eastern Time Sunday, give or take 8 hours. Because the Earth is mostly covered with water, chances are it'll hit an ocean. And some scientists believe as much as 40% of it will get burned up in the atmosphere. But if it hits land, whatever's left of it is bound to leave a mark. Jill Nato, Fox News.
At least 30 people were dead after a bomb exploded near a girls' school west of Kabul. The Taliban condemned the attack, and there's been no claim of responsibility. A well-known billionaire hosting tonight's Saturday Night Live show on NBC.
Tesla and SpaceX billionaire Elon Musk will take the stage this evening to try his hand at hosting the iconic show, which also features Miley Cyrus as musical guest. The announcement of Musk as Saturday Night Live host has drawn criticism on social media.
Is spreading the message of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace around the globe worth $2 per month to you? As you may already know, in addition to our internet feed, LRN.FM broadcasts on free-to-air satellite across North and Central America, as well as Sub-Saharan Africa. And we've been available on satellite for free 24/7 since 2010. The LRN.FM free-to-air satellite signal is reaching some of the most oppressive regimes in the world, and there's no doubt our ideas are making an impact. You can learn more about the channel's impact by watching the 3-minute video at fund.lrn.fm. If you'd like to help free minds globally with our ideas of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace, you can donate as little as $2 per month via fund.lrn.fm. You can help us continue and expand our satellite broadcast to multiple continents. Visit fund.lrn.fm today, and thank you for your help. Don't forget to share the link on social media. That's fund.lrn.fm.
After the USDA unveiled its updated roommate food pyramid earlier this week, Department of Agriculture spokesman Michael Lowry spoke to Onion reporters about just how many servings of someone else's food roommates should be consuming on a day-to-day basis.
Under the new guidelines, roommates should eat at least 4 portions of someone else's grains per day, including 1 to 2 cups of already opened cereal. Of course, this is all in addition to the 8 to 16 swigs of milk and orange juice spaced out over a few days.
Lowry emphasized that many aspects of the new roommate food pyramid are unchanged from the previous version, including a recommended daily intake of 24 ounces of lunch meat straight from the bag and 5 to 7 weekly finger scoops of Erica's peanut butter.
Remember to limit your intake of sugar and sweets from half-open containers, especially if they're Jessica's, because she'll definitely notice.
For more on this story, check this week's Onion Review.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
Hour number 2 of this Sunday night Mother's Day edition of Free Talk Live is now underway. We've got somebody on hold, and if you want to get on the air, you can dial 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. If you'd like to join us here in the studio tonight, it is myself. I am your host, the Reverend Captain Kickass. Joining me,
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
And I need to tell you that Bitcoin.com is the best source for learning about cryptocurrency. You can go there now, click on Get Started right at the top of the page. Once you do that, you'll find all sorts of valuable information neatly organized to suit your needs. There's no longer any excuse to ignore this important and world-changing information. If you're already a knowledgeable crypto user, you can check out news.bitcoin.com to get the latest headlines of all the news that's relevant to you. Bitcoin.com is your source for everything crypto, like getting a wallet app, mining, trading, and all the latest cryptocurrency news, all on a slick and easy-to-use website. Please visit Bitcoin.com.
So I did have just one quick thing I wanted to mention about last article. So I wonder, and if there are any Canadians out there or former Canadians that can
tell us what it's all about.
Indeed. So I do wonder if he would have caught this kind of flack if he were a pastor for the Anglican Church, which is the official state religion of England, which Canada is part of.
Canada's part of England?
Oh yeah. Well, sorry, getting my terms wrong. It is still technically part of the United Kingdom. The Queen of England is also the Queen of Canada, and her face does appear on their money.
Wow.
Indeed.
That's dumb.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they and the United Kingdom still
Sorry
has,
to oversimplify, but
it really is. They still have blasphemy laws in that country.
Blasphemy.
Yeah.
All right, we can continue talking about that. Also, we have this other article that we need to get to. But first, let's do what we do on here. Let's see if we can speak appropriately. Let's do what we do here on Free Talk Live and go to the phones. We have somebody named Sean calling in from Washington. Sean, you're on the air on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, I feel like that Melanie should go on a diet.
Okay, thanks for the call. So, we have this article from iflscience.com that says spanking may affect children's brain development in similar ways to abuse, study suggests. Now, before I actually get into the article, Melanie, you did bring this in. I was under the impression, and perhaps I'm just ahead of the curve here when it comes to reading about this kind of stuff. I was under the impression that this claims to be a new study. I was under the impression that this was already settled, that the answer was yes.
Well, so they've studied different things. They started with studying outcomes, and then people made the argument, well, maybe it's just that worse kids, the kids who would have had worse outcomes because they're just inherently bad people, get spanked more. And so that, and it's like, okay, so
correlation versus causation kind of thing, where like, are these kids having bad outcomes because the kind of parents who are likely to spank also
yeah, or the parents are bad, and so, which is a weird argument to make if you're pro hitting kids. Okay, well, you have bad outcomes just because the parents are bad, and worse parents who are less able to manage themselves.
Right.
It's like, okay, but and then there were studies showing that the more you're hit as a kid, the less gray matter you produce, which is going to have some variation from individuals anyway, but it's clear. And this one shows how it's more in depth than that. It shows how being hit as a kid has similar effects, but on a spectrum.
Okay. All right. So they put it on a different way of rating it.
Well, and they went more in depth. They did like, what are they called? MRI scans, and showed like what regions are affected in kids who have various experiences.
Okay. Because to me, and I'm probably oversimplifying again, as I like to do, but to me, it seems pretty clear that spanking is violence. I mean, if you, name another human being where if they did something wrong, you hit them, it's not abuse. Like a spouse, for example, right? If your spouse does something wrong and you hit them, wow, that's spousal abuse, right? Whether it's, a gentle tap or a bending over the knee and a spanking or a wooden paddle or a wooden spoon or whatever device it is you're choosing to use, to me, spanking is violence.
Well, and the argument that I usually hear is that you are not trying to hurt them, you are trying to get their attention.
Which is just a lie, because that's clearly a lie.
Yeah, because the same thing could be accomplished if that were true by just giving them like a little pinch on the shoulder or something. Because that's what you're supposed to do with like kids who are having trouble paying attention, or maybe undiagnosed ADD kids, right? If they're having a problem with focusing, the first thing they teach you is to put a hand on their shoulder to get their attention, because they can feel that and they go, oh, somebody's here. Yes. What do I, and you get their attention.
That's not how you get someone's attention in any other facet in life.
Yeah.
If the next customer in line is distracted, you don't hit them.
Right.
You're like, hey, next in line. Like,
right. What if people went
imagine
around,
like being at McDonald's and just cuffing the person on the back of the head because they were slow to order.
Right. Or how about the cashier was new and didn't quite know what buttons to hit, and so you're like, hey, come on, hurry up, and you smack them across the face. Would that be appropriate behavior?
I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was just trying to get your attention.
Yeah. I am not a fan of spanking for many reasons, but one, because it is violence, but also two, I come from a background of child abuse. I was abused as a child heavily, and I have seen evil personified. I know what child abuse is, physical abuse, mental abuse, etc., and so on, that I am not a fan in any way, shape, or form. And I am surprised that I turned out as well as I did. Right, for all of the crap that I endured and all of that kind of stuff. I don't want to go into the details. I won't bore you with any of that. But there are kids who went through just as much crap as I did, if not worse crap, who ended up in prison, who ended up being violators of violence themselves, violations of the non-aggression principle. You know, their entire life is based around violence, things of that nature. And it hurts me to see that, because I know that you can overcome it. I just don't know why I overcame it when other people aren't able to.
I don't know.
The same thing
not
applies.
trying to get into the free will argument, but there might be other factors that affect whether or not you're able to overcome it. It shouldn't be something that anyone has to overcome.
Yeah.
Maybe some people have, if some people have more mental processes to start with, or more self-control to start with, or a lesser, not prevalence, a lesser susceptibility to something like PTSD to start with, and you abuse them, then maybe you're going to have a better outcome than somebody who doesn't have those advantages, but still a worse outcome than if you had actually raised them right.
Well, I have the same question about why a person, and again, this is coming from my own experience, but why a person can sort of get themselves, or with some help from some, literature, videos or whatever, get themselves out of the fog of statism and come to the ideas of liberty when other people cannot. And why did it take me, up until I was age 37 or something like that to begin to come out of that fog? Why didn't I come out earlier? Why do some people come out way earlier than that?
Well, you didn't have the benefit of internet when you were the age that some people convert.
That's true, but still there were people who were, sort of disengaging from statism because of things like philosophy or whatever. But there's kids who go to college all the time, major in philosophy. They don't come to the philosophy of freedom.
You're not learning philosophy in college.
Oh, that's a fact.
Okay, but still,
But there are people who do, in fact, study philosophy, and they are not anarchists.
Right. Or become them in any way, shape, or form. They still have that overbearing authoritarian personality.
Well, and it's a confounding variable that a lot of people will lie to themselves saying this is for the child's own good, when what they're really doing is venting their own frustration at the child's behavior.
603-283-6160. Do you think there's a difference between spanking children and spousal abuse? More Free Talk Live on the way.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The Terran Federation and the Terran League have been killing each other for decades. Sheltered, wealthy, and light years from the threat, the members of the 500 have no interest in changing that. When Rear Admiral Terrence Murphy is given governorship of a backwater system, a risk-free path to wealth and power is his for the taking. But Murphy is a man of honor, duty, and responsibility. He intends to stop the killing, whatever the cost. Governor, by David Weber and Richard Fox, from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Welcome back to the program. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. It is Free Talk Live. We're the live call-in radio talk program where you can take control of the airwaves and talk about whatever's on your mind. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Beakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
The telephone number, if you want to join us, is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. We'll get to your calls and thoughts in just a minute. But on March 16th of 2021, government agencies conspired together and raided the Free Talk Live studio, the Bitcoin Embassy, the homes of Aria DiMezzo, the home of Renee and Andy Spinella, and the home of Colleen Fordham. 6 people were arrested. These people are now known as the Crypto Six. 4 of them have been released, but Ian Freeman and the person named Nobody, formerly Rich Paul, both remain in custody and have not achieved bail. What can you do to help? Well, you can visit thecrypto6.com. There's a bunch of information there about all sorts of different things. There's a video there that you can watch, and there are multiple ways in which you can donate to the Legal Defense Fund for the Crypto 6, because these charges are not a joke. It's going to take serious legal teams and many experts to protect the Crypto 6 from further aggression from the state. This case is very likely to set precedent that will affect the world of cryptocurrency for decades to come. Help them in their fight for liberty and financial freedom by contributing to their legal defense fund. You can find out more about the Crypto 6 at thecrypto6.com. Again, thecrypto6.com. We've been sort of discussing the article that we haven't really gotten into from iflscience.com that says spanking may affect children's brain development in similar ways to abuse, the study suggests. And we've all sort of had our say on, kind of what we think about spanking and child abuse and that kind of thing. And we will talk more about that. But first, let's go to Dave in Los Lunas. Dave, you're on Free Talk Live.
Good evening, everyone. Nature versus nurture and care versus don't care.
Okay.
Nature, everybody is always all about themselves. They're not thinking about anybody else. Nurture, we are taught to care for our neighbors and our friends and other people because we're all in this together.
Well,
and go ahead.
I would argue with you there. Part of our nature is that almost every human being is born with the natural biological capacity to develop a sense of morality. Now, which form of morality they develop is determined by the nurture, but there is certainly a gearing toward morality that we all experience as humans.
This is where the care versus don't care comes in. Myself, as an NCO in Korea, I ended up with the unfortunate experience of having a replacement NCO who was a rather intelligent young man out of Detroit, but he didn't give a fat frog's behind about what he was taking over and the responsibilities included therein. He spoke with Sergeant Major and the commander, and they found me another replacement, same rank, not quite the most intelligent person, but the key quality is that he cared. I took these two gentlemen on the run down to Yongsan and did them through their usual stuff that they were going to be taken care of in part of the headquarters of the battalion.
Mm-hmm.
And the young man who was not so bright retained a whole lot more than the other gentleman who was supposed to be a lot more intelligent.
Okay, and so how does this relate to these findings about spanking children, or was that?
I think he's referring to our earlier
topic?
Conversation about the importance of IQ for a libertarian society, and if someone cares about the non-aggression principle, even if they have a lower IQ, I think they're going to be a lot more effective in helping us to create a libertarian society than someone with a high IQ that doesn't really care
There's
about the
still a
non-aggression.
floor on that. If they're not able to process it, they're not going to be effective at all.
The key is breaking it down to the ridiculous, the stupid simple, as we call it in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
The person who does not care, no matter how smart they are, they're just going to sit back and let it go over their head. The person who does care, even though they may not be as intelligent, is going to care. And when I reminded them about, okay, you are under the watch of these 3-4 people, and your performance is going to rate your ability to get promoted, because we were in the most forward deployed unit in the peninsula, where that if you did not get promoted, there was something wrong with you. And if there was something wrong with you, you went to Camp Casey, to the land of no smiles. This place was one of those places where General Order Number 1 did not apply because we were constantly under alert. So that meant that we were always battle ready at all times, put your gear on, go. When the alarm sounded, you had to be ready 24 hours.
Sure. I want to go back to what you were talking about the caring versus not caring, because this is something that's taught in like leadership training, whether it's, in the corporate world or anywhere else. The saying is, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Is that kind of a summary of what you were trying to say?
That's pretty much the bottom line of it all, because it doesn't matter how smart the person is. The fact is that they care. The person who cares is going to get out of a live combat zone if they have to evacuate. The person that doesn't care is going to end up being fodder on the road, bringing up the rear end.
Right.
So, and especially in a situation where you need someone to actively do a thing, both of those factors matter. But when all you need somebody to do is not go around committing aggression, that doesn't require a whole lot of skills for you to. You cannot care and be perfectly able to not go around committing aggression.
Right.
Well,
but even the military has not even the military, but the military has a lower bar. I think it's 83, where they won't admit anybody lower than that. So below a certain point, when you're working,
with our unit, there was a minimum GT score of 110, which is higher than the normal.
GT, is that roughly analogous to IQ?
That basically equates to the ASVAB score. My ASVAB was an 88. I qualified as 127 on the GT, which was 17 higher than the minimum required. Plus, there was a height and weight and PE requirement and all that stuff.
Okay, thanks for the call tonight, Dave. We appreciate it. 603-283-6160 is the phone number if you'd like to comment on any of this. I think this brings us back to responsibility.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com. I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Come on. Come on. Yeah, it is Free Talk Live. We are a live radio call-in talk program. And that means you can call and talk about anything that's on your mind. The telephone number you need to do that is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. We've got some calls on hold right now, so if the line is busy, keep trying. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass, joining me.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
And you can join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for Forkfest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the very beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Forkfest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and Forkfest is completely decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you need to do is reserve your camping site, your RV site, or your motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. I can't think of a better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving people in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees there. There's a link to the unofficial Telegram chat and, of course, an unofficial forum. Again, links to all of that can be found at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. We were talking about spanking and child abuse, and then we backtracked and we were talking about the previous subject.
Oh, whether IQ or essentially
nature, nurture. They don't care how much you know until you know how much they care.
And we had left off. We'd left off with the idea. Melanie had just said, "Well, yeah, but there is a floor on IQ. Like the military's floor on IQ is 83, and below 83, like they just can't find anything productive." For you to do.
And I had mentioned, and I don't know if it got cut off or not, I ran a little over when I was saying my words, but I had mentioned that I think all of these things just bring us back to personal responsibility. Why am I a voluntarist, anarchist, libertarian type person? Because I care about my own personal defense. I care about principles, right? I care about the non-aggression principle. I care about treating other human beings as human beings, right? Mm-hmm. So these are all the things that I care about. So I think that's a better indicator of people who should be included in this, Ancapistan libertarian society, anarchist world, whatever it is. I think these are better indicators to me than IQ or some sort of a test that you take, personality test, that kind of a thing.
Well, and Melanie, you had mentioned that what you are asking someone to do is to avoid aggressing. So, avoid stealing people's things or threatening them or harming them. And I think
so that requires very little caring with sufficient social pressure.
I would say that it requires very little IQ, but to maintain that position requires a lot of care. So, I mean, every time that you get the opportunity to, say, steal a candy bar or whatever it is, I mean, if you really care about, being a good person, then that's going to be much more effective than being able to think effectively. So, like, if you,
that's not even true, because if you know, hey, I'm going to get caught eventually, and I don't really need all these candy bars I'm stealing.
Well,
that's all you need to not do that.
Well, what if you're just really smart and you go, I have figured out a way that I will never get caught doing this?
Okay, so at no point am I advocating that high IQ is the only thing you need. My position is that below a certain point, regardless of how good a person you are, because I'm not arguing that people with 60 IQs are evil or something like that.
Right.
But that functionally it's equivalent, because without these masses of just sub-functional humans, there's nothing for the evil people to do.
Okay.
I mean, there's things for them to do, but there's no way they're going to accomplish their evil goals.
Let's table this for a second, unless, of course, the caller wants to pipe in. Let's go to Mark, who's calling from Atlantis. Mark, you're on Free Talk Live.
This is Mark Edge, the host of Free Talk Live, one of the hosts of Free Talk Live. Yeah, what I want to say is...
I was going to say, what am I, child clever?
I was going to say, well, you were, but hopefully you will be again soon if we get our text straight.
Be once and future host of Free Talk Live.
I mean, we take breaks. I'm about to take a break. Like, am I not a host?
Once and future king of the galaxy.
We've got facsimile Mark here in the studio, so you know.
We have figured out how to steal candy bars successfully and never get caught. We call it politics.
That's true.
You know, somehow or another, we say when people steal our candy bars that are politicians or they work for the government or something like that, like we have to have this. Otherwise, there'll be chaos. But otherwise other people will steal our candy bars. Like, it's really crazy. It's a funny position that we take. But what I wanted to talk about was spanking. So I don't know how deep we got into this article, but I did read it.
Not that kind of spanking?
I don't know why.
Sorry, my bad.
So you're referring to the non-consensual form of spanking.
That's correct. Children specifically.
And as we are big on pointing out, children cannot consent.
That's correct. They cannot and do not. I'd like to talk about spanking. Now, remember, I have a son. He is 13. We did not spank. The reason we chose not to spank was because we never had to. But because I attempt to be the voice of reason on this show, I am often shoved into categories that I wish not to be in. And in this case, I'm going to be the pro-spanking guy because I think that articles like the one that was brought in about spanking are, I'm going to go ahead and say it, irresponsible. They use terms like may, could, suggests, and they don't say spanking causes people to be awful.
Well, so
right?
yeah, so anytime you take a science article and have a journalist summarize it, that's you get silliness like that. The actual
you sure do.
article, the actual science article is linked in that article.
They do, and I've read these things before. I haven't read this specific one, but these studies come out every 18 months. Like, this is like clockwork, and they're all terrible science done by activists.
Well, I wanted to go back to what you had said about the reason that we haven't spanked our son is because we never had to. Now, is the reason that you never raped anyone because you didn't have to?
No, the reason I haven't raped anyone is because I don't find that interesting at all. It's gross and awful. But,
I don't believe you. I think that you are interested in a negative way. I don't believe that you find it boring.
Okay, I didn't say boring. I thought it was awful. It's disgusting.
Well, it's a form of interest right there.
You know, English is stupid, and that's a side issue.
So what I would say regarding spanking is that.
So you mean interesting in the sense of like I don't wanna.
Okay, I think this is.
Anyway,
go ahead, Mark.
Regarding spanking, so what I would say about it is that what they're studying, in fact, is terrorizing your children, right? Like some people who spank terrorize the crap out of their children.
Yep.
Very few people who use non-corporal punishment to punish their kids terrorize them because it's an archetype. All right. And by that, I mean, like the kids constantly in fear. Their world's in flux. They don't understand.
Well, I'd say that's a difference in degree rather than type.
But yeah, like what is a non-terroristic way to hit people when they do things you don't like or don't do things?
When you read these studies, you'll see that like 7% more of kids are violent, or 15% more, do this or that. And it's a small percentage of kids that are actually spanked. See, the problem is that we've taken these two categories and we've created them. One is spanking, and the other one is not spanking.
You want to hang on, Mark?
Oh, yes, I do.
All right, stand by. We'll have more with Mark from Atlantis here on Free Talk Live. The number is 603-283-6160. More coming up.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Welcome back to the program. Thank you for tuning in and listening, everybody. This is Free Talk Live. The telephone number for you to call in is 603-283-6160. We do have calls holding. We're in mid-call, so if you get a busy signal, please keep trying if you want to be on the air with us here tonight. In the studio, it's myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass. Joining me,
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
And let's go ahead and bring the Atlantean back on the line. Mark, by the way, Mark, I've I've reinstituted facsimile mark here in the studio and pointed a camera at it. And I realized looking at this facsimile mark that from the perspective when I'm looking at this photo, you seem to lean a little bit right. But from your perspective, you lean a little left. Or is it the other way around?
Funny.
No, from my perspective,
the other way around.
You lean left. From yours, you lean right. Sorry, my bad. I had them mixed around.
Yeah. I think I think that would be hard for people to. It's hard to convince anyone that I'm a Democrat. What I was saying was regarding spanking, and I think that we have a false dichotomy put in place. Is that when it comes to spanking children, there's this sort of spanking or non-spanking camp that is often brought up on Free Talk Live, when in fact what we should be talking about is good parents versus bad parents. And I understand why the
that's
Venn
a
diagram,
lot harder to observe.
It is a lot harder to observe, but the results speak for themselves. Like good people, good, well-adjusted people are the result of good parenting.
How do you measure good parents? That's my question.
That's a circular argument.
How do you measure who is a good parent and who is not?
It takes a long time to get there.
Well, it's a circular argument, though, because, I mean, you wouldn't define someone as a good parent if the outcome of their child is bad.
Correct.
So that's a circular argument. Good parents have good children.
I don't think it's a circular argument. It's an argument that it's difficult to sort of make it clear. And I think that libertarians often rush to, does it violate the non-aggression principle or doesn't it? And I think that you can't do that with children, and here's the reason. Because they choose, they barely have a choice to live in your house or not. Like, if the rule to enter my house was I punched everybody in the nose, I would clearly be a lunatic and probably a bad person.
Wait.
But it wouldn't violate the non-aggression principle.
Are you saying, Mark, that you're okay with violating the non-aggression principle as long as it's a child?
No. What I'm saying is it doesn't violate, the spanking doesn't violate the non-aggression principle because it's my house and I pay the mortgage. My house, my rules. If you don't like them, go live elsewhere. And that's hard for a 3-year-old to do. And
but you also put them in a position where they are dependent on you. So if you run somebody over with your car and say, okay, I'll take you to the hospital, but I will only agree to take you to the hospital if I punch you in the face. That is still a NAP violation because you put them in that position.
Or if you have a quadriplegic in your house and you say, well, everyone in the house at certain time of day, I get to punch in the face, and, well, they didn't leave.
I understand your points. I'm just saying that it's not a violation of the NAP.
How?
And
I don't understand how you hit another human being, and that is not a violation of the non-aggression principle. You are aggressing on another human being. I don't care how old they are.
You're not. It's your house, and the rules can be what they are. And it's weird, but that's what it is. I would say that.
Can you explain that to me in a logical way? Because I don't understand.
Before we go any further, let me ask this question. If spanking your child one time between the ages of 1 and 5 resulted in them necessarily and 100% of the time being a good person, and not spanking them between 1 and 5 resulted in them being a bad person, would you choose to spank them?
That's kind of the hypo of that you're invoking.
So you're
another
asking
universe,
if the ends justify the means, and I would say no.
You're invoking another universe because I've also been asked if flicking someone on the nose would cure all cancer. Would I do it? Yes, but it doesn't.
Yes.
That's not the result in this universe. And so in this universe, I mean, it would still violate that anyway, but I'd be okay with it. In the
reason that we like the non-aggression principle is because this is how things behave in the real world that we inhabit. If we find out that the non-aggression principle is in fact detrimental to our long-term outcomes, we'll probably have to pick a new position.
Oftentimes, the people who refuse to spank are bad parents because they don't understand discipline at all. They say no discipline at all, and their children
Yes, that's true. And the non-aggression principle is not only not sufficient to raise a child, it's not sufficient to operate as a human being. The problem is this is where we're at. This is like the lowest bar we have to get over.
People that are spanked The majority of people who are spanked as children turn out to be well-adjusted adults.
The majority of children turn out to be well-adjusted adults.
Yes.
So,
What we would consider sort of normal by today's standards.
you're implying a causation that doesn't exist.
I don't know that we have a big enough sample group of kids who aren't hits to make that comparison.
Well, we do. There's plenty of them, and it's
the majority of children who are spanked drink water.
Well, indeed they do. What I'm telling you is this is irresponsible science, because what it suggests is that spanking is what makes people, bad and psychotic, when in fact it's terrorizing your children. Whether you do it by corporal punishment or not is what makes people bad. You can terrorize your kid and never lay your hands on them. And that's what I wish that these articles would talk about. I'm not defending spanking.
Well, it actually
under
did.
The most rare of circumstances.
Okay, I see what you're saying. You're saying that spanking may have some impact on a dysfunctional or child becoming a dysfunctional adult. But the greater problem here is parents terrorizing their children, and that could include spanking. It doesn't necessarily always include spanking. Am I understanding?
Right. What I'm saying is that parents that terrorize their children, and I understand I'll have to define that if you...
I can give you a very specific example.
Well, I would argue that while not all parents that terrorize their children spank, certainly, I would argue that at least to some extent, every parent who spanks their child terrorizes them. Now, it can be a small amount of terrorizing them, but it's still ruled by fear.
Let me use an example. When Jack was young, he was about 1.5 years old. He ran down my driveway, which at this time was, went out to a major highway. He got about 3/4 of the way down with the dog, mind you, as we ran after him yelling and trying to get him to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And he had disappeared a couple of times. Obviously, the thing that terrorizes young parents the most is, what if my child is dead? And so this is this is crazy, right? The kid's going down the driveway. Finally, he stops about 3/4 of the way down. And, I get him, and we do a timeout. He's probably had 8 timeouts in his life. Okay, this is how rarely we've had to implement this, because talking to Jack works most of the time. Had to do punishments, but it's rare. So I implemented one, and what we did was a minute. It was a minute for every year that he was old. Now, what I decided that night is if he did that again, he was going to get a real live spanking, and because he could die as a result. The worst case scenario really did happen. And so that would be the only circumstance under which I would spank. And I would forgive a parent who chose to use spanking, say, once per year between the ages of 2 and 7.
Okay, so I have better battles to fight than somebody who hits their kid once a year, because there are people
because this article doesn't.
But that's
Melanie,
not.
This article is the kind of irresponsible journalism that says everybody who spanked their kid once is a goddamn terrorist.
Did you read the actual study that was linked, or just the?
I did not read the study that was linked, because I've read these studies before.
And they compared kind of 3 different groups, but.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So.
It's always 2.
Yeah, it was never spanked, spanked without any further abuse, and then further abuse, which they classified a lot of spanking as further abuse, as far as I would understand it, because they included hitting your kid with objects and hitting them in other places as abuse, but not spanking. But the kind of the problem is, so a 1.5-year-old they don't understand death. They don't understand why they shouldn't run down the driveway.
Yep.
So they shouldn't have access to things that can kill them. And
the outdoors?
The area where cars exist outdoors? Certainly. You should keep them away from that until they understand what they're doing.
You can't put a fence everywhere, and you can't keep a kid.
Put them on a leash.
Dangerous place.
More Free Talk Live is coming up. 603-283-6160.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. local.bitcoin.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
A major energy pipeline shut down by a cyber attack. I'm Joe Chiro, Fox News. Colonial Pipeline says it was targeted by a ransomware attack that forced it to temporarily shut down a pipeline that stretches from the Gulf of Mexico to New York. The company did not say what was demanded or by whom. Tennessee Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn is calling for improvements to the nation's energy infrastructure.
We have had a Department of Energy cybersecurity project at Oak Ridge Labs, and I've been pushing to bring all of our national labs into a consortium to work on this, because securing our nation's critical infrastructure is going to be an imperative because of these bad actors that are out there.
Energy analysts say the impact on fuel supplies and prices depends on how long the pipeline is shut down. Deportations have reached an all-time low as a record surge of new migrants and asylum seekers continues at the southern border. Fox's Bill Malusian in Del Rio, Texas.
Border Patrol reporting that just here in Del Rio in the past week alone, they've been averaging 740 apprehensions every single day. The local sheriff here telling us he's never seen it worse and that human smugglers have been taking advantage. A semi-truck that got pulled over by local police after folks out there reported seeing people in the back of the truck. Police pull it over and there were dozens of migrants in the back of that semi.
Customs officials report 162,000 migrants were detained in April, but about 30,000 got away. 3 people were dead, including a suspect, and 2 others are injured after a shooting and fire in Maryland. Baltimore County Police say officers found an armed man outside a burning home in Woodlawn and shot him. The fire damaged 2 other homes. America is listening to Fox News.
Finally, get curcumin and CoQ10 together. Stop Aging Now brings you CoQ10 Ultra to fight inflammation and energize your body. Get a 30-day supply for 40% off plus free shipping with promo code FOX. Power and protect your cells for a strong heart, sharp brain, pain-free joints, and more. Nancy from West Virginia raves, CoQ10 Ultra helps me stay mentally and physically fit. Only from Stop Aging Now. Get 40% off plus free shipping right now. Go to stopagingnow.com and use code FOX.
The Equality Act is stalling out in the U.S. Senate. Democrats had hoped they could pass a legislation creating new protections for LGBTQ Americans this year, but Republicans warn it would open the floodgates for transgender athletes to play on female sports teams. A large piece of a Chinese rocket from a launch last month is expected to fall back to Earth this weekend. Fox's Jill Nato reports.
A 23-ton rocket core careening out of orbit and headed for Earth. We don't know where it's going to hit, but researchers think they have an idea as to when. The Center for Orbital Reentry and Debris Study says it'll be around 0419 Greenwich Mean Time. That's 12:19 a.m. Eastern Time Sunday, give or take 8 hours. Because the Earth is mostly covered with water, chances are it'll hit an ocean. And some scientists believe as much as 40% of it will get burned up in the atmosphere. But if it hits land, whatever's left of it is bound to leave a mark. Jill Nato, Fox News.
At least 30 people were dead after a bomb exploded near a girls' school west of Kabul. The Taliban condemned the attack, and there's been no claim of responsibility. A well-known billionaire hosting tonight's Saturday Night Live show on NBC.
Tesla and SpaceX billionaire Elon Musk will take the stage this evening to try his hand at hosting the iconic show, which also features Miley Cyrus as musical guest. The announcement of Musk as Saturday Night Live host has drawn criticism on social media.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for ForkFest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can relax and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded people, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with fellow ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Mark your calendar for June 28th through July 4th, 2021. We'll see you at forkfest.party.
A new report from the National Center for Education shows that an alarming 10% of U.S. high school students graduate without basic object permanence skills. According to the study, a growing number of American seniors are lagging behind their international counterparts when it comes to the crucial knowledge that things don't just disappear if you're not looking at them.
Because it exists even if your eyes can't see it. Am I making sense?
No. U.S. high schoolers have dropped to 17th in science, 25th in math, and a troubling 180th place in the basic cognitive awareness most humans develop as toddlers. Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan is asking Congress to fund increased after-school disguise and reveal programs.
It's time to get the kids excited to learn the most obvious mental concepts that make us capable of functioning.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to do better. It's just I don't know how I'm supposed to learn anything if I don't even have a teacher.
I'm still here, Vanessa.
Some educators worry that too much focus placed on object permanence might take away from other important skills, such as not touching hot things that could burn you.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Live Talk Free. Wait, what?
Talk Free Live.
Talk Live Free.
Live free and talk.
I did Igpe Attenley the other day. It was like Ifre Octe Ivle. Right? Just to announce the name of the show. Anyway, it is Free Talk Live. We have some calls on hold, but the phone number is 603-283-6160. If you'd like to try and get on the airwaves, if you get a busy signal, just keep trying back until the busy signal goes away. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass, joining me.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
On March 16th, 2021, terrorists, calling themselves government agencies, conspired together to raid the Free Talk Live studio, the Bitcoin Embassy, the homes of Aria DiMezzo, the homes of Renee and Andy Spinella, and the home of Colleen Fordham. 6 people were arrested. They're known as the Crypto Six, and they were taken into custody. 4 of them were released on some sort of bail conditions, but Ian Freeman and the co-host here, Free Talk Live, known as Nobody, both remain in custody and have so far not been able to achieve bail. One of them being denied outright and having to appeal. The other one having problems with the system itself in getting any kind of a bail hearing whatsoever. So what can you do to help? Well, you can visit thecrypto6.com. We've posted some information up there. There are multiple categories of information that you could choose from. There's a bunch of different ways in which you can donate to their legal defense fund as well, because these charges are not a joke. It's going to take some serious legal action and many experts to help protect the Crypto 6 from further state aggression. This case is very likely to set precedent that will affect the world of cryptocurrency for decades to come. Help them in their fight for liberty and financial freedom. Visit thecrypto6.com. Again, thecrypto6.com. And thank you to anybody who has contributed to their defense fund already. We certainly haven't achieved any sort of a goal. We haven't set a goal, but we haven't achieved what we think we might need. Some of these attorneys for this type of a case, this is a federal case, can go, as much as a couple $100,000. So if you think that, they've been advertising, they've got enough. Well, no, we don't. We really don't. So please, if you can, consider contributing over at thecrypto6.com. At any rate, let's go to the phones. We've got... thank you for holding, Major Payne. Major Payne's calling from Michigan. What's on your mind?
Oh, thank you, sir. Well, you guys have had me on hold so long. You got my marble spinning in another direction. I want to
spin away.
I want to touch on the subject of the government reducing our IQ and subsidizing it, but I also want to talk about this rod versus spare the rod, spoil the child thing.
All right. Well, pick one first.
All right. Well, we'll go with the rod.
All right.
Back in up until the time of the Civil War, it was legal. You've heard of the rule of thumb, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was legal to beat your wife with a rod, provided it was no thicker than the width of your thumb.
That's a myth.
Now, myself, I got a thumbnail about the size of a quarter. My old girl would be in trouble. And I had an old girl that wouldn't stay in the yard. She used to jump the fence. And I busted her, jeopardizing the family.
Are we talking about a woman or a dog?
Yeah, you had a wife that you kept in the yard who would jump the fence?
Well, you know what I'm saying. She wasn't faithful.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you're speaking figuratively.
The fence.
Wow, I'm sorry. I thought you had a wife that you held captive in your backyard in a fenced area or something. That was
I've
weird.
never heard that figure of speech for infidelity.
I'm just saying, and I don't believe in beating my wife. I don't believe in beating my children.
You were speaking figuratively.
But,
I get it.
Sometimes matters have to be taken into hands, and my marriage might have been saved if I'd actually slapped her once and made her behave, though I never did.
Your marriage might have been saved if you slapped your wife?
What's that?
Did you say your marriage might have been saved if you slapped your wife?
It might have. If I'd have made her just realize what she was doing, she was jeopardizing the family.
I mean, did you think that
I took her back 4 different times after separations. The family was torn apart 4 different times in less than 10 years. Every time I'd put something together, she'd tear it apart. It was horrible.
Somebody who's
the
willing
kids
to
were
do
totally
something like that.
traumatized forever. Christmas is never the same. She left and took all the vehicles on Christmas Eve.
So you think she would have wanted to stay with you if you hit her?
I don't know if it might have made her think twice is my only point, okay? I have no idea of how you control. She was from a broken home. I don't know if it was fixable.
Right.
Well, I don't think she would have increased her value of your relationship if you'd hit her.
Yeah,
Probably not, and I never did.
Somebody who's
willing. So kudos to me. I went through all that hell and never did.
Somebody who's willing to cheat on their spouse and destroy their family and screw up their kids' lives is not going to be deterred by slapping. They have deeper issues and about what kind of person they are.
Right. Okay, now I want to touch back on Mark's point.
Okay.
There's a difference between a spanking and a beating. Okay, and that's what the problem is with the kids that are beaten and physically abused, and mentally abused and just told they're pieces of trash and whatnot. And why are you here?
They'll both scare the crap out of you.
Yeah,
a spanking or a beating, and that is what we object to.
Believe?
And that's the thing. I don't object to, well, I do object to the physical damage, but I even more object to scaring the crap out of your children. That's not helping them.
No, traumatization is more horrible than the beating. The beating's over quick.
I mean,
beatings traumatize.
But it's not forever. It's whack.
No,
and
it
it's
is. It is forever.
There is a spectrum of abuse.
Wait. Let's go back. A spanking is whack and it's over. My old man used to walk around the block 2-3 times when he was kicking me before he'd lay a lash to me. And I was a rambunctious child. You know, sometimes I deserved it. He had a 3-inch wide belt with holes.
No,
I
you did
remember
not.
my friends coming over. I'd point at that thing and say, my daddy beats me with that.
Yeah, you did
and I'd
not
look
deserve
at it hanging on the wall, and it reminded me, don't do that, because daddy going to beat you with that.
Well, you
But
didn't
he
deserve
didn't lay
it.
it to me very often. But, you know, every now and then.
Well, I'm sorry he did. That wasn't right.
Well, no, I could have ended up worse than I am. Hell, the states beat me. My daddy beat me, and I'm still standing tall, Buck.
All right, thanks for the call today, Major Payne. We appreciate it. I'm with you, Lee. You know, it's terrorism one way or the other.
Because if it acts as a deterrent, like how can you say something acts as a deterrent, but also the people on the receiving end of it aren't terrorized or something like that? Like that makes no sense. If it's bad enough to work, then it's bad enough to have the other ill effects that come with that.
Right. So the question in my mind, and I'm trying to remember how this goes, it's something like, does your child understand rationalization? If so, then rationalize with your child. Does the child understand? If the child does not understand rationalization, then hitting them isn't going to make them understand what they did wrong any better. So either way, you're in the wrong.
Yeah, so if they understand, you need to communicate. If they don't understand, then they need to not have access to whatever it is that they're doing.
Right.
And speaking of rationalizing in a different sense of the word than you meant it, you can see how he's trying to make sense of the fact that he was hit as a kid. He's trying to make his parents less bad than they were in those actions.
I have yet to encounter a human being, and if you're out there, 603-283-6160, a human being that was raised and never spanked who now advocates spanking.
That's a good
Usually
point.
the people who advocate spanking will say something similar to what Major Payne, our previous caller, just said. Like, well, my daddy spanked me. He used to give me whoopings all the time, and I turned out just fine. No, I'm sorry, you didn't.
There's a lot of things I've survived that I would not say is okay to do to someone. Like, if you've been mugged and you're like, well, I'm fine. Okay, does that make it okay to mug people? Because that's the argument you're making.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, they're stuck at this point of cognitive dissonance where they don't want to see their parents as having done something wrong to them. So they're like, no, it was good. I deserved it. It made me a better person, when none of that's true.
603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live. We've got more coming up.
A newly recruited search and rescue officer, Marshall Hunter was resigned to a life of rescuing wayward spacefarers and derelict satellites. But when a billionaire couple goes missing, his own ship is disabled during the rescue. With communication satellites suddenly failing and lunar mineral shipments disappearing in transit, the crew suspects it's more than a coincidence, and Hunter must choose between salvation and sacrifice to save his crewmates and their civilian charges. Frontier by Patrick Childs and BingBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The Onion looks back at This Week in History. On July 21st, 2007, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the final installment in the widely popular Harry Potter series, was released, as excited fans all over the world eagerly flipped to the book's final pages to find out if Harry and Lord Voldemort finally
Author J.K. Rowling had already succeeded in creating one of the most popular literary franchises of all time. And of course, much of that success was owed to the expertly crafted sexual tension that steadily built up between the series' protagonist, schoolboy wizard Harry Potter, and the Dark Lord Voldemort. Everyone in the country wanted to know whether or not they would and if they did how many times would they and who would be who.
And that was what happened this week in history. In the words of Mother Teresa, if there is one lesson to learn from the past, it's that no matter what you do, there will always be a bunch more crippled dying kids.
This is the Onion News Network.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
Yes, welcome back to Free Talk Live. We're the live call-in radio talk program where you can take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever's on your mind. We've got some calls on hold. We'll get to those momentarily. The telephone number, if you need it, is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain, joining me.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
We've been talking about, well, all sorts of things, thanks to the callers who have called in and participated. And we're going to do more of that, actually. So without further ado, let's go to Rob in New Mexico. Rob, you are on Free Talk Live.
Hello.
Hello. What's on your mind?
I had a few comments on the spanking discussion.
Go ahead.
It seems to me that the folks there don't have much experience or personal knowledge of what spanking is about. I was the oldest of 5 boys born in a row in my family.
Mm-hmm.
You get a bunch of boys together. They don't use words they aren't controlled by words as young as girls are. So until maybe 11 or 12, we did get spankings, not a lot. And it was a very specific kind of thing. It was really a family justice system where boundaries, rules were defined, warnings were given when it was violated. If it kept on, they turned to a spanking. And by then, every one of us knew that we were justly being spanked. We weren't traumatized. It was a unpleasant experience, but it wasn't horrible.
Rob, do you realize
terrifying?
Rob, do you realize that this is what every female domestic abuse victim says about their husbands who abused them? Well, you know, I did do wrong, and the beating was justified, and it was just sort of his way of telling me I did wrong.
The beating, the butt is not very sensitive to spanking. It stings. That's about all it does.
Okay, so you wouldn't consider it spousal abuse if they hit them in the butt.
You're being punished.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Peakless.
So you wouldn't consider it spousal abuse if they hit them in the butt?
I don't think spanking is appropriate above the age where they really have judgment developed.
What age would that be? Who gets to decide that?
For us, it was like 11 or 12.
11 or 12. Which is it? 11 or 12?
So why are you having physical deterrents for people who don't have the ability to use judgment? Like, what is that supposed to accomplish?
Else worked. If we would stand in front of our parents, and they'd say, "Don't do it," and as soon as they turned around, we would go do it.
But if your argument is that you don't have judgment, and so that's why you have to use hitting instead, how are they supposed to control themselves with the judgment they don't have?
And it's not painful. It doesn't leave any permanent.
If it's not
damage.
painful, what are you deterring?
And
you talked about getting attention. You misinterpreted that. Getting attention, you have to say it in a language that the person understands.
Well, okay, let me ask you this though.
It.
You say that it's justified because they don't have reason, basically, right? So
they can reason, but they don't make good decisions.
Okay,
and
so if
you can accelerate the process by using punishment.
Well, okay, so if they aren't behaving the way that you want them to,
that's great.
Hang on, Rob.
But if they just flat won't do it.
All right, hang on, Rob.
Sometimes
go ahead, Peakless.
Okay, so if someone's grandmother starts to get dementia, starts to make bad decisions, to be less rational, and essentially behaves in a way that you don't want them to, is it okay to hit them on the butt?
I've never heard of anyone suggesting such a thing. That I don't know if it would do any good. I doubt it. But
then why is it okay in that circumstance?
Similar things.
They're very similar things.
That's part of what I see in your discussion. You're making these analogies that aren't apt.
Well, you're saying a person without these faculties needs to be hit.
No, I'm saying that someone that understands this wrong and knows that you don't want them to do it, but they still do it.
And I think you're just making excuses for your parents.
Because they want to.
I think you're just making excuses for your parents doing a bad job of disciplining you.
They were my mother rarely spanked us. She left it to my dad, and it was always at the end of the day, and he never raised his hand against any of us with any kind of anger. He would sigh and feel like, why do I have to do this again? And it worked. I mean,
violence
I would just
typically
sigh
gets
and
the desired reaction.
And go, why do I have to hit my grandma again?
Hey,
but it was always gently on the butt.
Thanks for the call, Rob. We appreciate it.
I mean, that's how the state operates. I'm going to use violence unless you do what I want. And you don't do what I want unless I use violence because, I mean, why would I? But
cognitive Stockholm dissonance syndrome, folks. It's all one phrase now. It's not Stockholm syndrome. It's not cognitive dissonance. It's all of those things wrapped into one, apparently, because I'm with you, Peakless. I think that this guy is just attempting to justify the abuse that he suffered.
And I just don't believe I was just calm and rational and not angry at all and completely detached and did it in a control. And I only use violence in a controlled manner when I'm calm and BS. Like, no, that's not what happens.
Nobody's dad spanks their sons without a little bit of anger in their eye.
And even if that were true, even if it was only used rationally. Well, I don't want to hit you, but I just have to hit you in order for you to do what I want you to do.
I'm unique in that I've had as many as 5 sets of parents in my life, and I can say that it is different for every set of parents as to what type of this guy called it a family justice system they would use. I've seen, everything from the hit on the butt to straight up beatings in my life. And I can't defend these people anymore, nor have I ever tried to. But this guy is certainly still defending the abuse that he suffered.
Absolutely. I mean, to a lot of people, it is much easier to refuse logic than to cope with the emotional trauma of going, I was abused.
Agreed.
And I know you want to hold your parents on this pedestal,
and especially for those of you who are older than me, I guess. Pre-internet, having libraries you could go read studies. The fact that somebody screwed up, if they didn't have enough knowledge, you don't have to continue to defend the behavior. You could just make the argument, we didn't know that, or it wasn't accessible, quote, they did know it, but these particular people didn't know it because they didn't have internet, they didn't have libraries of journal articles, or they didn't have anything of that nature.
Yeah. And also, too, just because everybody else's parents are doing it doesn't mean it's okay for you to do it to your children. More Free Talk Live coming up.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government. The real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it. And once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit shiresociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at shiresociety.com. That's shiresociety.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Yes, it is Free Talk Live. We're a live call-in radio talk program where you can call in and talk about whatever you like. We're unique in that way compared to other talk radio shows. The telephone number, if you'd like to get on air, is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass, joining me.
Bigless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
Been talking about, well, all sorts of fun things. What was the last? Oh, yeah, we were talking about spanking and abuse of children. One other thing before we go to more of your calls is children, that is to say legal minors, minors, are, at least in the United States and possibly worldwide, the last minority group to gain rights in some way, shape, or form, at least as recognized by states, for example, governments.
And the most important minority to protect.
Agreed. So when it comes to, human rights, I believe all humans should be treated the same as far as rights are concerned. I would, if there were such a thing as extra rights, I would grant them to children.
Right.
Right. I know that there's no such thing, that all humans are the same and we all have the same rights. So, but if there were, I would grant them to them because.
Well, and on the subject of what we were talking about earlier with responsibilities.
Yeah.
So what you have as an adult, in order to maintain the rights of children, if you see a child being spanked, you have to speak out. You have to say something. It is your responsibility to refuse to condone that behavior.
Okay, so how do you see that going down? Like, what is?
Well, Peakless Mountaineer is a pretty tall and burly looking dude. I'm pretty sure if he said something to somebody smaller, they might just be okay, whatever, buddy, and that kind of a thing.
And frequently, it doesn't even take a speech. Like, most people will simply avert their gaze. They will actively ignore this occurring. Whereas if you look at them with a horrified look, that is frequently enough to get them to stop. I mean, we were talking at the break about when you gave someone a look of horror about them having to hit their kid, and they eventually later in the conversation came back. Yeah, I guess that.
Well,
that wasn't okay.
I don't. It wasn't later in the conversation. It was later in life, but.
Well, and exactly.
I was surprised to hear that from this particular individual, but so I don't want to say interfering or not interfering.
We modify our behavior based on the emotional input that we receive from each other about
somebody
that
who's
behavior.
hitting their kids, especially somebody who has no problem hitting their kids in the light of day
or in public.
If
right,
you you telling them anything, all that's gonna. I'm trying to come up with a scenario in which you don't think that that's just going to make it worse for the kid later when they get home.
Yeah. You know what I don't see in the public? I don't see people spanking their kids very often.
I don't think I've ever seen
Right?
that in New Hampshire.
Like, but like, if it was okay to hit your kids in such a way, you know, if society as a whole sort of, or majority sort of thought it was okay, then wouldn't you think you'd see more of it in public?
I mean, I did down there.
I mean, I used to see more of it than I do now.
Yeah, the further
this is
south you go, the
anecdotal
more likely.
evidence. I have done no studies of it, so I don't know if it's occurring less in public or not.
Well, according to the study from the article, it's occurring less in general, which is a beautiful trend
that's
to see.
awesome to hear.
But we're in New Hampshire, but there's the rest of the country,
Right.
which contains several different cultures, and then there's other countries.
Let's table this for just a minute, and let's go to David in New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
Listening to you on KIVA, Albuquerque, New Mexico, the Rock of Talk with Eddie Aragon. Children's rights, would that include the right to say, like, actually know their mother and their father?
Do they have a right to know their biological parents?
That would kind of nix adoption, and I don't know if I want to do that.
I actually don't believe in positive rights. I believe in
No, okay,
negative
stop right
rights.
there. Why, if there's an adoption, does that absolutely mean automatically that the child is adopted? That means they will never know their biological parents before the age of 18. Why is that a necessity?
So
you said you asked, do the children have that right? And so if the parents want to give them up for adoption and don't want to be contacted before then,
You're making assumptions. Counselor, objection calls for speculation.
Okay, let's get back to the question. Do they have a right to know their parents? They have no positive rights. They have only negative rights. So,
well, why don't you
that
speak
gets
in English?
complicated with kids, because if you create someone helpless, you have an obligation, or if you cause someone to be helpless, which is what you do by creating a baby, you have an obligation to meet the needs that you cause from that helplessness.
True.
Okay, let me go back to what I was originally calling about, because this is going off, and it's a great conversation, but it would take an hour to sort through it. So today is Mother's Day. Today is Mother's Day, right? Yep. So I'm doing right now. Oh, and you had Jet called earlier. You know Jet, right?
Yep.
Jet doesn't want us referring to the government and such. He wants us to name names. So in the spirit and the honor of Jet, Judge John J. Romero Jr. trafficked my children illegally. I proved it at the New Mexico Court of Appeals with a unanimous 3-judge decision in my favor, saying that Judge M. Monica Zamora illegally trafficked my children, and they reversed M. Monica Zamora's illegal decision. And that ties into Mother's Day, because I'm calling on behalf. Nobody gives an F about David Olson, David Brent Olson. Nobody gives an F about me or my kids. You're sick of hearing about me. So let's talk about somebody else. I called in to KKOB radio this morning to the Eric Strauss show on the occasion of Mother's Day, because they were taking Mother's Day calls. So I called in, and guess what Eric Strauss on KKOB radio did? He took my call and left it sit on hold for 40 minutes as all the other callers passed by me, and then let the call die at the end of his program. Because why did Eric Strauss on KKOB do that? He did it because he knew that David Olson would bring up something about Mother's Day and parents being separated wrongly from their children. And so with that, let me point you to YouTube. Everybody knows YouTube. And if you search 2 damn words, everybody can do that. Parental alienation. And 2 weeks ago on Sunday, before this Mother's Day, there was a day dedicated for the last 15 years called Parental Alienation Awareness Day, because none of y'all know about it until it hits you. You don't care. Yeah?
Yeah, I remember Parental Alienation Awareness Day. And to your point, like I was saying about negative rights, they do have the right not to be trafficked.
David?
Yeah, okay. So they have the right to not be trafficked. To finish up the part that I have to say, and then I'll shut up, is that when, in the whistleblowing spirit, that if you obstruct me, cancel me, silence me, censor me, shut me down, and kick me to the curb, and don't allow me to talk to you, then I'll talk about you somewhere else. And so that's what I'm doing. So it's Mother's Day, and there's a whole bunch of mothers out there that don't have access to their children. And if you go to YouTube and search parental alienation, you can see video after video after video after video. I doom scrolled for 35 minutes to get to the bottom of how many videos there were of these people that have been alienated from their children. YouTube parental alienation, that's what I had to say.
Thanks for the call, David. We appreciate it. It's certainly something I did not hear about until David had mentioned. I did not know that there was a Parental Alienation Awareness Day. I have experienced parental alienation as a child multiple times, so I do sympathize, and I know what he's talking about.
I'm profoundly grateful that when my parents divorced, they didn't try to alienate us from each other.
603-283-6160, and that is very often the case of what parents will do, particularly in a divorce. Everybody thinks they won't do it until they're in the heat of the divorce, and then all of a sudden, here comes the hate and vitriol and trying to put the child in between. More Free Talk Live on the way.
I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state, Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Yes, come on and listen to Free Talk Live. Yeah, you can be a part of the show 7 nights a week from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. Eastern. And it's no laughing matter. I think we might be the only syndicated radio talk program that allows just open phones and for you to talk about whatever's on your mind. So that is pretty cool for this show. And it's called Free Talk Live for that reason. Tonight, I am your host, the Reverend Captain Kickass. Joining me in the studio,
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
And I want to say thank you real quick to Joshua. Why am I thanking a man named Joshua? Joshua is a silver level amplifier here at Free Talk Live. What does that mean? Well, if you go to freetalklive.com/amp, that's AMP as in advertise, market, and promote, you can find out a lot more about the amplifier program. Essentially, this program is a way that you can contribute to the show to help us get the ideas of liberty, freedom, prosperity, and peace onto more radio stations than we're currently on. We're on about maybe 200 stations right now. We could be on 250. 300 radio stations is not out of the possibility. It's all up to you. Joshua donates $5 a month. He's at the silver level. There's a couple of different levels. You can contribute different amounts. And there's some perks that you get for being an amplifier, like the AMP-only podcast and the supporters-only chat room, that type of thing. But really, it's about getting this show onto more radio stations. So if you enjoy this show, if you enjoy the hosts, the co-hosts, the callers, if you've gotten any value out of the show, if you've learned anything, if you've changed your mind about a topic, then please consider becoming an amplifier and help us spread the message of freedom. And again, thank you, Joshua, for your contributions. We do appreciate it. We've been talking about a lot of stuff, and we do have Dave from Washington calling. Dave, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, well, some other day I'm going to call and talk to you about the youngest of rights. That would be the right to life. But this time I was just going to refer to voting rights. And there's some people, there's a move, and especially one party in politics, encouraging younger and younger voting. To the point of saying, hey, we think 16-year-olds should be voting, and we want to get them registered in high school, and I'm curious as to what your thoughts on that is.
My personal thoughts are that if we're talking about voting for president, is that it is a complete and total waste of anybody's time. That's my personal, but I'll let the other hosts also pipe in.
So I think that moving the voting age downward, you've got two problems that are so for one, the reason that we had voting in the first place was so that people who were going to potentially fight and die if we get in a war would hypothetically be able to do something to prevent unnecessary wars. Now, obviously, that's not what happened. And the reason if I were an evil world manipulating person, the reason I would want to move the voting age downward is because they're easier to manipulate.
Yeah.
So I don't care about voting rights. I care about results. I would straight up utilitarianly, how does this demographic vote? And there's your decision. I am hesitant to give voting rights to people who are legally property, which is what 16 and 17-year-olds are. And they shouldn't be, but that is their legal status, because then you now own property that can vote, and that's awkward.
Well, what about a 3/5 vote for them?
I would lower those people still couldn't vote. They were just counted in the census, which was
right,
wild, but
insane.
I would lower the age of majority to at least 16, and allow them to get regular jobs, open businesses, move out. If they are in one of these abusive households that we're talking about, they could just leave. That's always an
I actually got a job at
awesome.
16. I went to the grocery store and got a job when I was 16 to pay for my car and my gas.
Yeah,
and
there are
everything,
limited jobs that minors can have, but you cannot have every job that an 18-year-old can have. You can't even work full time in a lot of states. You can't work after certain hours. A lot of times you can't work during school. So no, they can't. They don't really have a right to get a legal right to get a regular job.
Well, I was just going to say my take had been that I'm completely against the idea of making the voting age younger. In fact, if I was going to vote yes for anything, and I'm talking just all voting basically, I would be making it actually older because in my opinion,
that's
I
interesting.
believe that you should have life experiences before you start voting on things like taxes and where money should go. You have to have some realization of what those things mean. And when you're living under your parents' roof or you're living and partying at college like I did, you don't have a reality on life in general, living out in the real world, so to speak, outside your parents' house or outside of college, and just paying for bills, going to work, all the rest of that. I think everyone should have some degree of that in their backpack before they're starting to vote on things. So I would rather it be like maybe 22 even, which I know everybody say, wow, why would you want to raise it from 18 to 22? And I was in the military. I do get the idea of, hey, maybe they should be able to vote. If you can go to war, you should be able to vote. But, I mean, yes, that's an argument.
Just real quick on that. So would you also be in favor of raising the draft age to 22?
Sure. I'd be fine with that.
I think that'd be a positive direction movement.
Yeah, I think to make it, equalized out, that would be fine. But I just fundamentally think that when you're voting on things like property taxes and those if you don't own property and pay taxes on it, it's hard for you it's easy to just vote for other people to pay for things. And I fundamentally think you should have sort of skin in the game when you're voting. I also think it should be voting's a right, but you should have to want to vote, So me going to register to vote, I don't see any problem with that. I don't think I should be automatically registered and forced to, opt out. If I care enough about voting, I should go and register and go vote.
To me, taxes were most annoying. I mean, they've never not been annoying. They were most annoying when I was 16 and 17 because they were taking this money to do things that I wasn't allowed to access, or not that it's not a payment for a service gig, but that's what they present it as. And you're not allowed to drive past a certain time, and you're not allowed to. Someone else owns you and can tell you not to go to the library or the park, but they're taking my money and then giving it to whoever. That seemed the most screwed up to me. And then, when you're 16, 17, 18, 19, hopefully you don't have kids, so you're not getting all these tax deductions, but you have income, so you're being taxed at the highest rate possible. You're probably not married yet. Maybe I'm just weird, but that seems to me when you would be the most upset about paying taxes because you're paying it all.
Usually at that age, you're in the lowest income bracket and probably not paying any income taxes because you don't make enough to really, after the standard deduction, you're not really making that much as in the lowest income groups.
Hey, Dave, you sound like you are, educated and can speak fluently. What is a right? Can you define that?
A right?
Yes. What is a right? You talk about voting as a right. So what is a right? If voting
I
is
think
a
right. Right is anything that you should be allowed to do without asking permission from someone else. It's things that just in general, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. You have the right to pursue things in your life without government overreaching into everything that you do.
Is voting a right? I'm asking internally here to my co-host.
Well, so I wanted to mention that I do think this entire conversation is discussing rearranging the furniture on the Titanic.
Agreed.
So, I mean, do you have a right to put your suggestions in the box for they're going to threaten people anyway? Maybe. Do you have a right to tell them how to threaten people? Definitely not.
So the reason that I said my answer, which is I don't think voting, I think voting is a complete waste of time when it comes to presidential voting. The larger the group you get, the less effective voting is. I think voting might be effective in a group of 10, right? But when you get to 10,000 or 100,000 or millions of people, there is no one that is more dumb than all of us trying to make decisions together. And we're seeing the results of that. I'm 48 years old, and president after president after president, all of the laws keep growing in number. They keep growing in stupidity, and none of them ever get repealed. When is there enough laws? I don't understand this, and voting doesn't seem to help at all.
Well, I agree that it doesn't change the way things work, but I do think it is an effective way of expressing your perspective on what's going on. So I think that, for example, Trump was a protest vote. Like, he was a way of saying, especially like when they were voting for him in nomination, he was a way of saying, we are dissatisfied with the status quo.
Thanks for the call, Dave.
Now, it didn't change anything that he got elected. We're right where we were anyway, but it was an effective way of saying, hey, we don't like the way things are going.
We are out of time. This has been Free Talk Live, the Sunday night edition. If you missed any of it, go visit freetalklive.com and view our archives and listen there. Thanks. Peace.
The Terran Federation and the Terran League have been killing each other for decades. Sheltered, wealthy, and light years from the threat, the members of the 500 have no interest in changing that. When Rear Admiral Terrence Murphy is given governorship of a backwater system, a risk-free path to wealth and power is his for the taking. But Murphy is a man of honor, duty, and responsibility. He intends to stop the killing, whatever the cost. Governor, by David Weber and Richard Fox, from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
A major energy pipeline shut down by a cyber attack. I'm Joe Giro, Fox News.